What's up, guys and gals? Welcome back to the Nerd Castle for yet another server reset. So this one's going to be a very, very important episode, and I think this might be a little bit of a short one. We may not do a whole lot in this one because the server is actually shut down right now, so this is essentially just going to be me hanging out for a little bit, playing the game, getting started on the server before I open it up to the hordes tomorrow morning, and then once we do that, there's actually a lot of things to talk about in this episode, so I'm pretty excited about it. No doubt if you're seeing this episode, you probably saw the accompanying video, and in fact, I'll probably annotate this one and be like, hey, go watch the other video log as well, because it contains pertinent information for the Reign of Kings playthrough. So I don't know how much longer we're going to play Reign of Kings, but what I'd like to do is get it set up so that as a community, at the bare minimum, we have like a set of rules and things that we can accomplish while we play the game. I'm just going to design my character out here while we do this. No, I do not want to randomize everything. That seems like a terrible way to go about getting stuff done. I will, however, make my character a little bit smaller. I don't know how small you can make him, but making him smaller seems like a really, really good idea. Just like lower the chance of getting shot, bludgeoned, or otherwise hit whenever somebody takes a swing, unless all the hitboxes are the same. I guess that would be the one thing that would go through right there, is if all the hitboxes remain the same, I guess it won't matter. However, the video that I posted this morning had a whole lot of information about just sort of like the random way that we would run our characters and make things work on the new server. And so in the interest of making this like kind of a cool roleplay server, I've decided to come up with some rule sets. And so just in case you missed the other video that has all this information in it, essentially the rules are the server, or the rules of the server are as follows. So the first rule is that you're not allowed to raid people when they're offline. And so while this rule will irk somebody and they don't like it, I mean, ultimately, it's a rule that I think is fair because I strongly dislike it when people wait until you log off and then come hit your stuff just because you can't be on the game 12 hours a day. And so if you raid people's houses when they're not online, that's not going to be okay, and bad things are going to happen to your ROK login account at my server anyways. The second rule is that the map is going to be divided into like 4 or 5 different areas, and each of those areas is going to represent a faction denoted by a color and a nation. When you build inside their color, that means that for the first time when you build inside that area, you are now a part of that faction. I will require people to register up with me with what forum or what faction they're going to be a part of once I get that actually all set up, just so I can have a list so I can make sure that people are doing the right things. But the function that this is going to have is going to sort of like take the edge off some of the combat, I guess. And so some people are worried about KOS. Well, KOS becomes a lot more meaningful when it's another faction that's attacking you. And so ultimately the rule is going to be very, very simple. You may not be attacked by your own faction, but other factions may KOS or attack you as much as they see fit. For those on the server that very much want to just like build and hang out and talk for a little while, there will be a gray area on the map, a literal gray area that you can hang out inside of, that's going to be like the Switzerland of the map. And so the people that are part of that faction can hire out to fight with other people and help out with their invasions and things like that. But if you're part of the gray faction, it means that you just want to build and be creative and then possibly get paid in stone or whatever else to come help out once the conquest days happen with the other faction areas. Ultimately, the Kingship, I haven't really decided who's going to hold down the Kingship just yet. Yeah, that doesn't work for me. Those voices are all too like they're too high pitched. I need like a heavy voice. There we go. That'll work. And so nonetheless, I feel like that rule set that we've got right there, just like those two rules, should help out. One time a week there's going to be some sort of like attack or something like that. Basically one day will be like open warfare day, where they'll fight over the crown, and whoever comes out victorious, and they get to set the taxes for the map. Hopefully they don't set it too high. I would say that I would set a maximum of maybe like 15% as the tax, and that'll actually sort of like goad people into attacking the certain faction if they are actually gleaning off a lot of materials. And so once they take their position on the map, I think that these rules should help us out in making the game flow a little bit better. As for my banner pattern, I like that one very, very, very much right now. That's a cool pattern right there. That's a really cool pattern. And then I like the yellow right there too. That's pretty banging. I enjoy the way that that looks. And then we'll go in on like some green right there or something. Yep, because I'm going to be a part of the green faction. I haven't talked about that yet, but it's going to be a thing that occurs. And so let's say that we're done, and we can use an appearance potion whenever we want to fix that up. Actually, let me do my face paint real fast. I'm going to do my face paint to match the color of my faction. So there it is. I may actually require that so that you can identify people. Like, you may have to have face paint that's like the color of your faction, so that we can actually identify you properly. That's also something that's not super easily changed within the game. Like, you have to get like a potion of appearance or something like that to change it. And so that might work, actually. Let's make that another rule. You have to take face paint that's the color of the faction you're joining. I'll have the video up so that you know what the different colors are before we start playing. But, you know, there it is. I'm going to be part of the green faction, and so I've declared it now. Let's be on our way, shall we? The load screen shouldn't be too bad right here, because as I understand it, the actual game itself, is the sun going up or is the sun going down right now? I'm sorry, is the moon. I know the difference between the moon and the sun. Oh, actually, they just reversed in the sky. That is super special. So we started out at night for right now, which is going to be a little bit troublesome. However, they did the good deed of allowing us to start with some flammable sticks. And so I guess I'll start out there. Let's also take a look around and see if we can get our bearings. I think I'm on... I think I know where I am. I'm fairly positive that I know where I am, and if we continue in this direction, we should be pretty good and get started. I don't know. There's a lot of issues that came in when I first started like trying to come up with the rules, and I started looking at what some other community servers are doing, and almost like universally, a lot of the really well-run community servers are like, you're not allowed to attack people's bases when they're offline. Like, I was surprised how frequently that rule came up and that nobody really complained about it, because that would be a hinging factor for a lot. I guess some people like to attack when there's no risk of retaliation or whatever. This makes it so that when two people engage in any sort of like factional combat, or if one person attacks another, they know exactly who did it, and there can actually be reprisals and things like that, and it makes it a lot more fair so that you're not just getting all your stuff jacked by some ghost in the night who will never admit to it. And it's upsetting when it happens anyways, and so now you should be safe as long as you're offline. Now, if you log out in the middle of a combat, that sort of thing will not be acceptable, so if you get attacked, I expect you to stay online within reason anyways. If you log out in the middle and then try and tell me that somebody kept attacking you when the attack was already engaged, there's not much I can do about that. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of leeway right there. Oh, yeah. Let's grab some of these stone resources off the ground. Our bag isn't looking stoned enough right now. I'm running out of jokes. I have very little material left for this series. But yeah, I don't know what we're going to transition into next, but I wanted to get the Reign of Kings server set up in such a fashion where everybody could play on it and have a good time before I actually broke off the video series. And I'm not saying that it's breaking off right now, but we've done about 30 episodes now, and I'd say that I've probably got about 10 or 11 more in me. We'll try and edit those out to make them a little bit more cogent and make the experience a little bit more fun for everybody, I guess. But for right now, let's grab you. Hell yeah, we'll grab you right there. Let's get some stone tools rocking right now. I think some stone tools. Make sure that our tool is made of stone before we go any further. That's actually going to require a lot of stone to get done. And so we have to like chop out some wood. We're not really going to have much of a choice right here. So let me get going on this tree. But I think the rule set is fair as it stands right now. If you wanted to make minor modifications or if you have suggestions, feel free to drop those on in the comments down below. I will treat this video as sort of like a comment period where people can sort of like say what they like or dislike about it. Obviously, things are open to be moved around within reason. I'm pretty dead set on the way the server is going to be run as of right now. But if there are small modifications to make each of the various systems function a little bit more smoothly, I'd be okay with implementing those and making sure that the factional combat goes in a way that we'd like to see fit, and that the people that want to be protected and just do PvE off in the gray zone can do that. Whereas, you know, it's just, there's a lot of stuff out here. Now, I do apologize. The people in the gray zone are probably going to be quite a long ways from the central resource area just to keep you guys a little bit more safe by making it inconvenient to attack you. And additionally, there's nothing that I can do if you're, say, in the resource valley, and somebody decides to attack you. There's nothing I can do about that. I can promise that your buildings will be safe off on the islands off to the side, but if you're out gathering resources or anything like that, that's kind of like one of those areas that I have no idea how I would police that in the first place. Like, some players are just like off limits while they farm out the resources. I don't think that I can make that happen realistically. And so if you're out in the midfield, you're out in the midfield. That's no man's land. It's the wasteland. It's essentially the wilds in RuneScape, and so there it is. Still, I can promise you certain areas of the map will be PvE only, so that at least once you're back into the safe zone, you'll be alright, and you don't have to worry about people coming by and blowing your shit up if you just want to get creative and make some stuff. The King's Castle is up there. God, it's eerie how that thing glows sometimes. I think we should have the materials that we require in order to get some of our earlier tools done for right now. I think we're lacking on the flax end, and we are lacking on the stone end. So let's go find ourselves a stone node. We'll beat on that for a little bit. I had some trouble. I mean, that's one of the big things that I'd like to reiterate for right now. This is not going to be like a serious episode of Reign of Kings. It'll be like in the series set, and it'll be the sort of thing that people can view, and it's just kind of like buying me time while I get the server set up completely. So at the same time, I had troubles running the server before because there seemed to be a fundamental confusion between, like, basically I set the only rule as don't be a dick, and apparently that's very, very subjective. Like, dickery is very much open to interpretation is what I learned from that situation. And so now we're setting down concrete rules. Be aware that if you build in a faction's area as your first base and you lay your crest down there, you are now part of that faction. So choose very, very wisely. Ask around. Be like, how many people does this faction have? How many people does this faction have? I'll probably start out with 3 factions, just to keep it odd. so that if two factions decide to ally up to fight a stronger faction that maybe holds like the Kingship, ultimately that's going to be my way of balancing the game out sort of planet-side style, in that if any one faction gets too strong, it means that the other two can ally and sort of just like make sure that that's going on. I'm obviously not going to be against diplomacy or people declaring ceasefires or anything like that. I'm going to leave it open to democracy. People can decide who they want the leaders of their factions to be when they play the game. My God, it is so dark out here. And so there it is. I'm not going to declare myself as a leader, but I'm going to be part of the green faction. And so if anybody wants to be a green faction leader, let me know. We can talk about it once you become part of the green faction. I have the feeling that, I don't know, other people are going to be up on the server like Dragast and people like that, so maybe they want to run their own factions. Not really positive how the whole thing is going to play out at the end of the day, but for right now, I'm pretty excited about the way that everything's coming together and everything's starting to look. And so there, I think this is going to be a fairly strong rule set for us all to rally behind and also have a good time, while at the same time providing both protections and opportunities for people of all types. People that like to PvP, people that don't like to PvP. You know, I think this is about the best that I can do. I've done my best with it, and so people are going to have to cut me some slack right there. I think that things are looking pretty good. Oh, thank God the sun is coming up. That is so pleasing in so many different and wonderful ways. So for right now, what we're going to go do is we're going to go chop down some trees, because obviously you can't start off a YouTube series without getting wood, or at least making a couple of wood-related jokes. It's unfortunate, but it's a thing that just sort of has to happen. And so off and onto the side right now, we'll get this all taken care of. I don't know when my next filming date is going to be for this series. I'm going to take this very, very slowly, and I'm going to be very, very aggressive about like positively moderating and making sure that things are being taken care of in a fashion that needs to be, because I think I was a little bit too light-handed last time, and this time I just need to like not unleash the ban hammers on people, but definitely let people know that there are rules that must be followed if you're going to play on this server. Like there are things I will also, oh yeah, as a further rule, there will be, you know, respect on this server, I guess would be the final way that I would close off. There will be, you know, no language, taunting people, calling them all kinds of ethnic and, you know, ridiculous sexual slurs and things like that while you're running around, because we had a problem with that as well under the previous rule set, where we had people just like running around in circles using all kinds of terrible language. And you know what, this is going to be a community server. There's going to be kids on here, there's going to be grown-ass adults on here, and so I'd prefer to keep just the sheer sort of ignorance and nonsense to a minimum. And so obviously that won't be tolerated no matter what faction you're part of. And so aside from me witnessing it, there's not a whole lot of ways that I can stop people from using bad language within their own guild chats and things like that. And that's perfectly fine. If your clan or, you know, your color guild wants to have bad language and things like that, that's cool. But if I see it happening, you know, in the server chat and things like that, things that are off color, things that are any more than PG-13 rated, obviously I'm going to have to put an end to that pretty quickly, because we have a very, very mixed group of people playing the game. We have people of all different stripes, all different colors, and all different backgrounds, nationalities, etc. And I'm trying to make it comfortable for everybody. I want people to remember that when they're playing on this server is representative of the Nerd Castle, and honestly, I'm always really impressed by the way the comments on the Nerd Castle are not like filled with just like nastiness as they are on so many other medium-sized channels. And so I'd like that to transfer over into here, and because I've already had a problem with it now, I need to put my foot down and just be like, you know what, I will not be tolerating racial slurs, sexual slurs, or anything else in the general chat, or if I catch it happening anywhere else. Frankly, if I witness it, you're going to get called on it real quick. I may give you a warning if I'm in a good mood, but ultimately it's not the sort of thing that I feel like is conducive to building a community in this environment. I mean, if you don't feel welcome there because you've got hateful people spreading all kinds of nonsense, then, well, there it is. You don't feel welcome, and that's not okay, because I've always sort of wanted the Nerd Castle to be a place where anybody can feel very, very welcome, regardless of the things they're into in life, within reason. If you're sitting staring at the kindergarten with binoculars and stuff like that, obviously, you are not welcome, sir. But either way, change your evil ways, seriously. But I want people of all creeds and, you know, types to be able to show up here and not feel like they're being persecuted for whatever it is. And so I'd like that to transfer over. And I was actually really, really surprised by how vicious and nasty and just how, like, slur-rating and things like that the chat were on some nights when I ran the server last time. And I didn't really know how to deal with it, aside from, you know, calling people on it, just being like, hey, don't do that. But then they'd be like, oh, well, it wasn't in the rules. And so there it is. It's been declared now. It hath been declared. I think the things that we need to get done right now is I'm going to try and get some of my workbenches up and running, some little things like that. I'm hoping that they fix the weird bug with the berries where it costs you. I'll try and see if I can get it to trigger right here, but there comes a point where if you eat berries, it starts to cost you hunger. It's done it to me a couple times now, and I don't know exactly what triggers it, but it's definitely a little bit obnoxious when it triggers off. And so this will more than likely be the day's video when we go out on stuff. I'm going to try and get the server set up. As far as attacking sleepers, I'm not really sure where I'm going to leave that. I suppose that if you're sleeping out in the middle of nowhere and somebody kills you, You kind of had it coming. You should probably build yourself a base or declare yourself as part of a faction. That's going to be one of the first things you want to do when you come up onto the server. And I'm going to try and give them cool names and cool flags and things like that so that people can get behind it. If anybody has like forum hosting abilities or anything like that and feels like moderating that and sort of like maintaining all of the random community events, because obviously I work very, very long days on YouTube, I'm not going to be able to orchestrate a lot of these sorts of things. I will not be Mr. Holland to your Opus, unfortunately, no matter how much I would like to do it, simply based on the fact that it's a full-time, you know, random, well, not a full-time job, but it's definitely a thing that you have to have some free time in order to make it work. And so after setting up the rule sets, getting people into factions and stuff like that, from there, I'd like to get admins and community mods and people like that who start to make sure that things are being taken care of properly. Once the game starts to get more optimized and the map starts to get a little bit bigger, maybe we expand it out to 40 players at a time who can be part of the game so that the factions can get a little bit stronger. We can have some bigger raids and some bigger combats in there. Sounds like a good plan to me. It sounds like the sort of thing that might be a blast. So, you know, all things that we're working towards. But for right now, let's keep our eye on the prize. I'm going to keep working on getting some of these resources out of these stones. No idea when the server is going to be going back up. More than likely, it'll probably happen around Thursday or Friday. That's going to be when the floodgates open. People can declare their factions. Make sure that I know about it so that I can add you to the list. And then if you change factions or you change your character or anything like that, you decide you want to swap around, obviously you'll have to hit me up about that as well. I would recommend maybe doing it through Facebook. Would probably be the best place to do it, even though I know I'm a little bit behind on a lot of it. I'm going to try and keep like an Excel spreadsheet with everybody's factions and things like that. Obviously, if one of the community mods wants to take over on that front, that would be greatly appreciated. But for right now, I know that I'm going to have to sort of like bear the brunt of a lot of this startup cost, so, or the startup time cost, I guess. Let's eat some berries because it looks like we're starving for right now. And so these tomato-sized berries, honestly, I'd be down for it. If they had a berry the size of a tomato that tasted like a blackberry, for example, or that tasted, you know, like any other delicious berry you pull off. I'm not really too big of a fan. I love cranberries, actually. Cranberries are fantastic. I am a huge fan of cranberries. However, I'm not a fan of blueberries. Blueberries are gross until you cook them. I don't know what's up with blueberries, but they always suck until they've been cooked properly. Let's get some of our stations going for right now so that we can know our station in this world. It's going to take 1 minute to get that done. After that, we're going to jump in and get the campfire a-rockin'. I think I should probably, while I wait for those to happen, let's go on off this way. I haven't set up any of the admin permissions. Otherwise, I would just fly over there right now. But still, I haven't set up like anything for the server right now. I just actually rewiped it and reset it. And every time I rewipe it, I got to rewrite the config file. You'd think that if I was smart, I would keep it all in a text file, but nope, because I'm inefficient and I hate doing things that are time effective. I just rewrite it from scratch every single time, although this has made it so that I know how to write the config file fairly well. What I'd love to do is I'd love to make it so the nodes don't despawn so that they have infinite resources, because that would mean that you would have to bring bodyguards and you would have guys that would be farming out here basically holding the key down while other people guard them, and then there would be a constant fight in this valley right here over all the resources and things that are available to people. I don't know if I'm going to set the areas up. The areas will more than likely not be a part of this resource valley. I would say that this resource valley is more than likely, I'm going to keep it so that you're not allowed to build in the resource valley, maybe. And that this will be like a free-for-all zone between the factions as they fight for like the various resources that are around. That one's a little bit sketchy. Let me think about it a little bit longer. But anyways, I'll post a video tomorrow that obviously has all the specifics about the server. For right now, I apologize. This episode's going to be a little bit shorter, but it was just me sort of like venting my thoughts. Now, I almost said venting my frustrations, but I'm not really frustrated. It's just one of those things where I think there needs to be a strong hand and there needs to be sort of like guidelines and things that are going to happen versus not happen on the server each day. So anyways, my name is Splattercat. I'll see y'all in the next episode. That'll be the one where we actually start having things happen on the server. I'm going to get started farming up some materials so that we can hit that full sway. Remember the rules that we've declared here. I'm going to have another video log going up in just a moment so that we will know how to get everything completely and totally organized, and anytime somebody gets into trouble for breaking rules, infractions, things like that, I'll be like, bam, go watch the video. It's got it in there. I'll see y'all later. Hi, do everybody.